¿Qué? Has this ever happened to you before? You are listening to what a native Spanish speaker is saying, but you just can't understand anything? This has been my experience during my Spanish learning journey, and I can tell you that it has been extremely stressful. But one thing that has helped me to be able to understand fast Spanish speakers is staying calm. Because if I am not calm, then I'm more than likely extremely stressed, my anxiety has increased, and I'm actually really not paying attention to what that Spanish speaker is saying because I'm too focused on dealing with all those feelings. So I stopped saying that native Spanish speakers talk too fast, because just by saying that over and over again, okay, they talk way too fast, I'm already basically admitting self-defeat, that I'm not going to be able to actually understand that native Spanish speaker. Even when I am in a very calm state, it can be quite challenging to understand fast Spanish speakers. So one thing that I do now is just focus on what I am listening to. I used to squint my eyes and try to listen very intently, but at the time, I did not realize that I had to actually start to listen for specific things. So now what I do is always try to listen for different types of patterns and pronunciation rules. I know that if a Spanish speaker is talking in the past, then maybe they are going to be using the imperfect tense. And the imperfect tense, I'm going to be hearing a lot of ia, so that type of ending of a verb. But at the same time, not only verbs have that type of ending sound, but also nouns do as well. For example, if I'm talking in the past and I want to say comía, so that's the imperfect tense, but then also we have librería, or we have panadería. So then we also have nouns that have those types of endings. So then once I have this type of knowledge, I can try to figure out what that Spanish speaker is saying, or at least try to pick out those different types of words when I am listening to them. And there are many pronunciation rules and patterns that I can use to my advantage. Another one is the ending of a word that has ION with an accent mark. So like conversación or transportación, and then also knowing the differences between, let's say, que with an accent mark and que without an accent mark, and then como with an accent mark and como without an accent mark. All these help me to understand fast native Spanish speakers. I like to think of this as a puzzle that I'm trying to piece together. So I have all these little puzzles, and these are my Spanish words that I'm hearing that are incredibly fast, and I have to figure out how to actually get them together. So I'm like, oh wait, is this K, or is this K with an accent or without an accent? Was that a noun, or is this a verb? Okay, that went together. Okay, that makes sense. But at the same time, I don't need every little piece of this puzzle to be able to understand what the final image is going to look like. And the same thing when I'm listening to fast Spanish speakers. I don't try to actually try to understand every single word that a Spanish speaker is saying anymore, because I know that if I do try to listen to every single word, then more than likely I'm going to miss everything else that they are saying, because I can only hear so many words. All these things have helped me out tremendously, but I wish I had this type of mentality when I was in the Dominican Republic, because when I went for the first time almost 2 years ago now, it was very stressful for me because I could barely understand anybody. I would say I probably understood around 10% of what the Dominicans were saying to me, and I was just super stressed out, and I was having a hard time because for me, their type of Spanish was incredibly fast for me. I've learned from this experience that every time that I hear a Spanish speaker from a particular country that I'm not familiar with at all, and I've never heard their accent or anything like that, it's always going to sound extremely fast to me because I'm just not adapted to this new way of speaking Spanish. And it's only logical, and it is very normal as well. So I basically have to be like a baby all over again and start from zero when it comes to my listening comprehension skills. So no matter what, it's going to sound very fast. Another thing that has helped me out a lot to be able to understand fast Spanish speakers is being very patient. And one good example of this is my Dominican friend. So I met him about, I want to say 6 months ago now, and we met at the gym. So it's been this long and I still don't understand 100% of what he's saying to me. Actually, there are some days when I only understand 50% or even less than 50%, more like 40% of what he is saying to me. So you would think that after talking for such a long period of time that I'll be able to understand a lot more. But that is another thing that I've had to learn is it just takes a very long time to be able to adapt to how a Spanish speaker is speaking. So that's why I don't say that, okay, they are speaking too fast, but that's just the complexity of learning a language and increasing my listening comprehension skills. It takes time and there's actually no shortcut. There are many details to keep in mind. For example, I just met him and he's from the Dominican Republic. So I have not heard every single accent from that country. So he speaks quite differently from what I've heard actually before in the past. I have to adapt myself to that. Also, there's quite a decent amount of words that he says that I am not familiar with. So that takes some time trying to understand those because many of them are just words that they use in the Dominican Republic. So that has a lot to do with learning more about the culture of the Dominican Republic as well. I can tell you that every single time that we're having a conversation, I am learning something new. And that's also one of the benefits of having conversations is that I can ask him questions. In comparison to when I'm watching a video on YouTube or watching a movie on Netflix, what I would do in that case is just put on the subtitles and then just do a lot of repetition. But I love having conversations because I have that interaction with my friend where I can just ask him so many questions like, ¿cuál es la diferencia entre cortar y recortar? Or lo que sea. So I just love being able to ask questions, and then also I get that repetition still because usually I ask him the same question for days on end because I always forget. So that actually helps me to remember a lot of the words that he's saying that are new as well to me. It may take up to 10 times of me hearing just one word for me to understand what he is saying, which has happened many times, like with the word Mama Juana, which is an alcoholic drink from the Dominican Republic. I remember he's had to say this word to me many times because I keep forgetting because it's been very difficult for me to actually understand. But that is just the reality of the situation. And honestly, I don't know when I'm going to be able to understand 90% of what he is saying to me, but at least I know I have a solid strategy for how to actually get there. Now, I always have this mentality with every new Spanish speaker that I meet. I always prepare myself. Okay, this is someone I never talked to before, so more than likely his Spanish or her Spanish is going to sound incredibly fast to me, and that is okay. I'm going to have to start at zero and just take my time before I can actually comprehend them. Maybe it will take just one day. I don't know. Maybe I've already heard this accent before, so I already know all the vocabulary. I'm used to the accent, so it won't be that challenging. Or maybe it's someone from a completely different Spanish-speaking country that I've never been to before. I'm not familiar with the country at all, so I'm not going to understand anything, which happens all the time as well. Like last year when I went to Honduras, I didn't go to Honduras. I met a woman from Honduras. I met a woman from Nicaragua. I met this guy from Venezuela. So these countries I am not familiar with whatsoever, and I just started to meet people from these countries for the first time. So now I have the mentality like, okay, it might take up to 3 to 5 months for me to be able to understand maybe even 50% of what they are saying. And I am incredibly okay with that because now I do understand how difficult it can be to understand fast Spanish speakers and what it truly takes to be able to actually increase my comprehension so it is not that fast. But maybe now you are thinking to yourself, well, Joshua, I don't even like talking to Spanish speakers at all in person because I am too afraid. Well, watch this next video so you can understand how I overcome my fear of speaking Spanish. Muchas gracias por ver este video y hasta luego.